Hello and welcome all at APEC Third Global Education and Skill Conclave. Now, we are moving towards the next panel discussion, which is building leadership and innovation in K-12 education and training. Let me introduce the speakers, the eminent speakers of this session. But before that, let me introduce the moderator of this particular session. Let us welcome Ashish Gulati, who's the Vice Chairman of Bluebells Group of School Gurugram. We
Thank
welcome
you.
you, sir. Now,
Thank you
let me
so much.
introduce the speakers of this particular panel discussion. Dr. Shalini Bajaj, Principal, Memorial School, Gurugram. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next, Dr. Shunila Joy Chauhan, Principal, Orchids International School, Mumbai. I think she has just joined the session.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. Thank you very much.
Ma'am. We have Kirti Sharma, Principal, Jesus Sacred Heart School, Ludhiana. Welcome,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Privileged to be
And we
here.
have Dr. Kavisha Khurana Vij, the director of the Chintals Group of Schools, Kanpur. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you for having me over.
Now, I'm just handing over this particular discussion to Mr. Ashish Gulati to, go ahead with the moderation of the session.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very uh, interesting subject of innovation and leadership. And I must congratulate the organizers for having thought out of a well thought out of a subject that's very relevant to the times today, the times that we are going through, and the times that we live in. It is uh, only befitting that this interesting discussion happens amongst a distinguished panel. And I also must congratulate the organizers for putting together this panel of distinguished educators who I wholeheartedly welcome and invite to be with me in discussing this very important subject of innovation and leadership. So, to set the stage, uh, I would invite the panelists to decode what innovation means to each one of them in context of school education. Innovation is a very broad and can sometimes be an ambiguous term. Uh, Innovation uh, can be something which can be defined as something out of the box. It can be defined as something which is entirely new in approach. It can be understood as improvisation on existing ways and means and epistemologies to see the world in a different light. It can also be understood as a progression of our historical past. So, in context of school education, and may I pose this question to my panelist, Dr.
Is it my
Dr.
internet?
Gulati.
Is my internet connection not working, or is it Dr. Gulati's?
I think it's Dr.
Mr.
Gulati's.
Gulati's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dr. Gulati.
It
Okay.
is, yeah.
I think we can start discussing on
Yeah,
this.
right,
Right.
right.
We can start discussing on this innovation part, no?
Yeah, so Kriti ma'am, you may begin and
All
continue
right.
with
Okay. Okay.
Dr.
So,
Gulati. Yeah.
as per Mr. Gulati, like he was talking about innovations, right? That what innovation mean to us, right? So, according to me, whenever I think of the word innovation, I feel like it is a different pattern of thinking. It's a kind of a design thinking, right? Where we deviate ourselves from traditional thinking, and we deviate ourselves from traditional patterns of behaviors and interactions, and find out some new ways of thinking, some new ways of finding out some new ways of carrying out with the processes. So according to me, innovation is deviation from traditional thinking patterns, adopting new design thinking, and finding out solutions to every kind of a wicked problem which this word is facing. So this is what innovation is for me.
Sure. Thank you very much, ma'am. That's very inspiring. May I further request you to please elaborate on your experience with design thinking and breaking away from conventional ways of thinking? If you could possibly share an example of something that happened in your context, it
All
will
right.
probably enhance our understanding of paradigm.
Okay. In fact, when I say design thinking, I need to make everybody understand in this educational sphere that we need to adopt a kind of a model of education where we ignite a desire in the children as well as in the teachers to think about what is going on and what can go and what is not going on. Right. Like, for example, there is a very, small example related to this. Whenever we carry on some kind of inquiry into some kind of processes, like, for example, inquiry into, change in the weather. Fine. So every child comes up with a different solution, a different perspective to think about this particular topic, and a different solution. And you just imagine when such kind of thinking patterns are put together, that group thinking brings out beautiful solutions for how to improve the environment. And at a very junior level, for in our school, what we do is there are very small questions like odd one out, right, which we give in our question papers, which we give in our assignments. But what I do promote in the children is, "Okay, if this one is odd one out, then why?" Right? Think about that. Imagine that children come out with different answers because they have a different pattern of thinking about that particular problem. So this kind of different patterns of thinking about what is the problem is, thinking how can that problem be solved, and thinking about different solutions, different perspectives of a particular situation or a particular problem, and inquiring about into every aspect, every dimension of that particular situation. I think innovations can be brought up. And according to me, this is one of the basic thing to promote innovations and creativities in the classrooms for the children as for and for the teachers as well.
Sure. Thank you very much for that example and that perspective. And it is only relevant to have climate change as a context in inspiring innovation. May I now request the next panelist to please share with us your understanding of innovation? Please feel free. I'm not going in any order.
All right. Okay. I will add Mr. Gulati. See, education doesn't mean, just, giving knowledge to the children and then, assessing them on the knowledge which has been given to them in the classroom. Education should be, innovative. That's what we're talking about. The topic is innovation means that, children should be able to, design probably their own experiments, or they could be, being a science person, they could actually, relate science to, everyday life, or probably
Sure.
they could, explain their ideas. Something innovation is like, thinking differently and not, the scope is not just, whatever has been, taught in by the curriculum. It's much beyond that. Critical thinking and all those skills, innovative thinkings are included in that.
Sure. Thank you very much, ma'am. I think Dr. Kavisha has a point of view which
Yeah.
you'd like to express.
Thank you, Mr. Gulati. As told by Kriti ma'am, followed by Dr. Bajaj, and you also said that innovation is quite a broad and an ambiguous term, sometimes ambiguous, and innovation is design thinking. If you see a child when they come to school, when they're very young, say 4 5 years of age, you look at the parents, the way they talk. My child can do this, my child can do that. Okay, he's okay in school, but at home he does so many things. But as the child grows, if he's spending too much of time in innovating, actually innovating things, doing things, but the parents always complain, "Ye padhta hi nahi hai, he does not study." So, somewhere there is a stop on innovation. Children are born inquisitive, we all know that. But where does that innovation and inquisitiveness go? I feel if we want innovative leaders, what we are talking about, we need somewhere to put a stop on the snowball effect. And when I talk about snowball effect, it means like you know a ball of snow when you have it in the hand. It's so small, but when you roll down that snow, this a little ball of snow grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and it takes everything along with it, right? So, same happens with our mind. There's a slight little problem with a teenager or a young adult faces, or a preteen face, or even we face. There's a small problem in our mind. Something is happening, but we do so much of judgment in it. We create our own stories. We overthink on it so much that this little ball grows this big, right? And we see social media, we get carried away by this WhatsApp university. The new virus is coming, this, that, and this little problem we just started with the school, it has grown this much. So children appearing for boards have a problem. What will happen, ma'am, in March? What will happen now? This little problem goes. And then the overthinking shuts down innovation. Here, I feel we as an educators need to stop the snowball effect and let us melt the snowball as soon as it's in our hand. This is what I have to say. Only then can we have innovative leaders tomorrow.
Sure, ma'am. That's very relevant. That innovation definitely needs a more secure environment, a
Yes,
more a less
mentally secure environment.
that is
Absolutely.
less judgmental and uh, less judgmental and less threatening
Less
is
threatening.
something
Absolutely.
which is very very necessary to foster innovation, because innovation could also mean that things that there will be failure. When I say failure, I don't mean absolute failure. There is no the results might be different from the ones which were desired or expected, and that calls for a lot of acceptance on the part of the other stakeholders. On that note, I would want to move on now that we have shared our understanding of what innovation means to all of us, and we seem to be on the same page, wherein innovation is something that is inspired, that can be channeled through design thinking. That's a thinking which is relatively free, judgment free, and also fosters in an environment of trust and a tolerance to ambiguity and failure. Uh, how do we now see this innovation happening in a school system which, quote unquote, is highly regulated and highly assessment and performability driven? Uh, do we have enough room for innovation among students, and before it can reach out to students, do we have enough um, room for teachers to foster creativity amongst, and innovation amongst themselves, and create an environment and a culture where the students are inspired to think innovatively and to put their ideas to practice? I would invite Madam Kriti Sharma to please initiate this aspect of innovation in the school context.
First of all, this is really a very important aspect of innovations and leadership, and I would say the most essential part of innovation and leadership. According to me, India was known as a hub of scholars because we had thinkers as educationists at that particular point of time. So, very first of all, I feel like that educational leader has to be a visionary and a thinker. To promote that creativity and innovations in the school system. So, until unless the educational leader does not have a vision, creativities and innovations cannot be promoted in the school. Fine. So, first of all, my appeal to all the educational leaders that be a thinker and define a vision for yourself and for your institution. Until unless those visions are not defined, we will not be able to align the processes according to those vision. Then, uh, in school ecosystem, I always promote a theory of three C's to have innovative approach. What are those three C's? First C is culture of creativity to be promoted. Now, to promote that culture of creativity, a proper ecosystem is to be generated. Here, I would like to quote an example why Bangalore is known as, a hub of IT, and why Bangalore has so many startups related to ITs and not any other city. Because Bangalore provides that ecosystem, because Bangalore provides that particular support to new young generation to have their new startups. Therefore, majority of new startups by young generation starts from Bangalore, right? Same way, this ecosystems are to be built up in the school, and to promote that ecosystem, again, educational leader has a great role to play, a great role to play to give freedom to the teachers and freedom from various obstacles, those processes which create obstacles in creativity. So, first, for my very first C is creating a culture of creativity, right? And then, of course, it is a human instinct that until and unless we are not exposed to competitions, we are not forced to move forward. Fine. In any area, in any industry, wherever there is a competition, that industry has improved. Fine. So that healthy competition is to be generated. Fine. Competition with our own older versions, and that can be analyzed when an educational leader, as a pedagogical thinker and as a pedagogical planner, knows very well that where my school stands, and from this level, uh, with a competitive healthy competitive spirit, I have to take my school to next level of generation. So this healthy competition also fosters a kind of innovative and creative approach, right? And this healthy competition amongst the teachers, having some competitive increments, having competitive incentives, forces the teachers as well, to think out of the box and to give something new to the school system and to do something new in their own classes. Then my third C is collaborations, right? Ideation and group thinking. These are two major factors which promotes collaborations in the school system. One thinker who is heading the institution cannot have those results as hundreds of thinkers can do together. And when those hundreds of thinkers together think differently but striving to achieve a common shared goal, of course leads to new processes, better outcomes, and better results. So according to me, these three C's, creating the culture of creativity by promoting ecosystem, promoting healthy competitive spirit, competitions with our own selves, with our own older versions, and beautiful collaborations for group thinking and shared vision. Of course, promotes creativity and provides an opportunity for innovations in our classrooms and in our school educational world. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, very comprehensive. It is. It is beyond doubt that unless we have the right ecosystem that fosters innovation can be lost out on. May I request Dr. Shanila Joy to please add and also help us to understand what would be the tenets of this kind of an ecosystem which would foster innovation.
Yes, so just adding on to what ma'am just said right now, it's actually so true that we have the correct ecosystem, which would be a big support, because and that sort of filters down with the people who are actually there in leadership roles, whether it's leaders, deputy leaders. We need to foster that kind of freedom to the teachers, to the staff, that yes, you can explore the curriculum, not just have a very, a narrow view. Yes, it is important to follow a curriculum based on the board that you follow, and guide the children accordingly, but a certain amount of flexibility needs to be given, and that happens when our heads and leaders are in that they are in the same state of mind, they have the same thought that yes, explore. When we talk about giving a particular problem to a child, give them that freedom to make mistakes too. Let them come up with it. Make a mistake, it's all right. You learn from it. Definitely don't just try to erase that out. And that will bring in innovation, because when you make a mistake, yes, the first time, second time you would be right. Or maybe you learn something from it that will help you to go into the right direction. So that I think, as I heard my fellow panelist who was here before, ma'am, she was also saying the same thing, that we are talking about children being very inquisitive. They are always very inquisitive by nature, and they keep on thinking and coming up with things. So give them that kind of you know freedom to you be there as a person who's a facilitator on the side, and let them go ahead, and whether it is through a project, or whether it is just application of what they've learned. They may be destroying a few things here and there, of course we know how our children also do that, but then they learn like that. And innovation in the classroom can be brought about when we expose our teachers and staff to what is happening in the world and what is happening around. Uh, Only when they see that, when they are exposed to more and more such innovative methods, using new technology or new out of the box ways of learning, will they be able to guide the children? So I definitely believe that project based learning, critical thinking, inquiry based, application of knowledge, experiential learning, where you actually are getting that hands on experience, helps us to be in that direction.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Dr. Shalini, how do you in your school balance this dichotomy of free thinking and innovation versus performability and assessment, the demands of the assessment? It's a delicate balance that uh, an educator needs to strike, especially considering the demands of the syllabi and the demands on the time of the teachers and the students.
Um, First thing, even CBSE under this new education policy is encouraging critical thinking, innovation, etc. Yes, I know there is a voluminous syllabus, particularly in senior classes, the board classes, where performance matters a lot. These are all about marks, knowledge based. They've hardly any high order thinking skills questions. Most of is it knowledge based, or at the most some application, slightly application based. But this is something which we can do it very nicely in junior classes. Nobody is stopping us to improvise and experiment in junior classes. Once that base is made, Later on, you don't have to, rote memorize and perform. Understanding will also give the same result. So we should not start with, making children learn from the beginning. From the beginning, they should be ready to experiment, explore, and think out of the box. Let me give an experiment. We started off, in this online system. We thought, let's do some science based experiments in, pre-primary classes. So the first thing we thought was, let's, experiment with colors. Let's give them, we tell them that mixing of these two colors will result in this color. And let's tell them, okay, now you go ahead and, mix whatever you want to mix and come up with your own results. So these kind of, small experiments, activities will foster. So I personally believe that you have a huge curriculum, but the curriculum is not that much in primary classes. We can go till 8th class also. We can innovate, and we can give this liberty to children. The same curriculum, instead of, reading them and giving them knowledge, it could be done in a very different way also. Ninth and 10th also, if the children have a strong base, strong fundamentals, rote memorization will not be that problem. And with new education policy, we are moving towards a change, so that will take care.
Yeah. Dr. Kavisha, I would be keen to hear from you about how you have, or you think you can, involve parents and bring them on board to initiate innovation among students, because the parental support is very important, and a positive support for innovation can go a long way in encouraging the student to think and innovate.
Yeah, parents are one of the biggest stakeholder, and in the education system today, we all have been on a journey from tell to ask, and even parents ask a lot of questions to their children. Some children respond. Every child who comes up home, the parent has one question: "How was your day?" And it grows on. But parents now also need to understand that the things have changed a bit. Children, before asking anybody else, they ask the artificial intelligence. We've all seen that Google ad "Bolne se sab hoga," where somebody is asking and you get all the answers. And we've already crossed that world. And from the journey from tell and ask, we have now moved on. Even the parents have known that we have now come to the journey of know to understand. Their children might know, but it takes time for them to understand, right? Likewise, the curriculum also has to be moved from what curriculum to how and why curriculum. And when we have this innovation, because parents are absolutely bothered a lot about marks, we all know that 10th ka result, 12th ka result. But as Shalini ma'am said, if we take the parents into confidence right from the beginning and make the formative years very, very experiential, obviously these children will produce result in 10th. Your half battle is won there. If their concepts are clear, they're gonna ace board examination. And I would also like to add one more point. I would like to share what we have done for an innovation, new design thinking. If you ask a senior child, say the child, say a child who's in class 9, that if you were in class 5th, what is the concept which you didn't understand? For example, the child says, I did not get fractions in class 5th. Ask the same child, how would have been taught? That fraction as a chapter would have been clear to you. And you will be surprised that a class 9 average, academically average child will explain it in a way that the class 5 child is absolutely clear with the concept of fraction, because that child knows which part he could not understand. So if we innovate, taking the collaboration, as even Priti ma'am said, collaboration is very important. I believe collaboration with senior children for junior children is also very important, because they have walked into their footsteps lately. So they can tell that where did we lack and where can they innovate to make things better. And it has worked, and it will continue to work, because the little ones also look up to the seniors more than they look up to anybody else. So it will always work. Do try it in your schools also. That's the first step of innovation we can learn from our children.
Okay, so on that note, for the sake of inviting another perspective, Let me play the devil's advocate and ask all of you uh, why this overemphasis on innovation? Don't we have enough knowledge base in the world which needs to be understood and grasped? And innovation can happen uh, can happen later. Let the children learn and um, let them have the rigor, the quote unquote conventional rigor of learning the already existing um, canons of knowledge, which are increasing, um, you know, by the day. Why do we need to have innovation? Why do we need to have innovation at all? I mean, it's. Please feel free. I'm not inviting um, whosoever wants to go first on this.
All right, shall I?
Please feel free, ma'am.
All right. In fact, why innovations are important, because um, we have to make it a habit, fine, to think out of the box, and to think differently, and not to join in a rat race, right? If we want that the entire world citizens should not be following blindly someone, and should have their own thought processes, so that the whole world can grow together. I think innovation has to be made a habit, and differently thinking out of the box, thinking logically, thinking creatively, right, should be in a habit. Now, whenever a habit is to be developed, it has to start from the early ages. It has, because the mind, the brain, structure system will change with every new skill you learn. Fine. It is very neurologically and scientifically, it has been found that whenever something new is done, whenever something different is done, the structure of the brain changes. And that structure of the brain brings out something beautiful for the person, personally in his life, and for the word as well. So if we want that a word, if we dream of a word which is led by beautiful people and beautiful souls, a word which is led by a great scientist, a word which is led by great businessmen and entrepreneurs, I think innovation should be started from a very early age, so that they develop a habit of thinking differently, and they develop a habit of having logic for every their own behavior and for their every interaction. So social interactions will improve, personal behaviors will improve, right, and their own desires will improve, in case they develop a habit of having a logical and critical thinking. And this will of course lead to innovations and creativity, and this word will become a beautiful word, having peace around. This word will become more adventurous, right, having scientific temperament, contributing for the humanity and mankind, rather than for the destruction. So if we want this kind of a world, right, innovation should be started at a very right age, and the very young human minds should be taught to think logically and to think creatively. So this is what I do believe.
Yes, while I'm inspired by your thoughts, I am also reminded of the fact that the purpose of science is not the furtherance of humanity; it is the creation of theory. And a lot of scientific innovation has done us more harm. And one of the more prominent examples is the invention of the dynamite, when Alfred Nobel was quoted as the merchant of death. So
Yeah.
it's not only about humanistic, and I would still take another a few seconds to play the devil's advocate and ask Dr. Shalini that if everybody was to innovate and think differently, then we would all be bohemian. And who would implement, and who would there is somebody who designed Facebook, but there are thousands of them who are implementing it and holding that knowledge and putting it to practice. So we do need people who can innovate, but before that, we also need people who can implement it. That's another perspective, for us to think about.
See, Facebook is one example, and all of us are unique, and our mind works in a different manner. Probably, I might be, a good scientist, might not be a very good with arts. So let them, innovate in their own way at their own level. So if you're good at something, I might like to, kind of use it, implement it. My forte will be probably cooking. I'll come up with recipes. So why we have this small, sphere of, saying that, everybody is going to, do those big things and very differently. In our own way, we can all be innovators. This is what I believe. And innovation, of course, is important. I totally agree with, Ms. Sharma also, that, whatever she said was, very right. What would happen to us, in this Corona time, had we not had any, innovators, and they would have been dearth of, we have so many vaccines and so many people are working, and they will come up with a solution. So I personally feel this is important. Implementation will happen in a lot of others. Probably I'll innovate in one field, one sphere, one area. Other places I'll follow others and implement. So let everybody have an innovative bend of mind. Let's work on that.
Okay, that's a very broad perspective of inclusion and innovation, and also an appreciation of innovation at an individual level may or may not be visible, to the world, but is provides satisfaction and intellectually stimulates the person who's thinking and innovating. On that note, ma'am, as educators, how have you tweaked or reinvented your curriculum in your schools in an innovative way, while balancing the syllabi and the requirements of the assessment system, is something that I would want you to briefly, each one of you, to briefly share for the benefit of the educators in the audience who may be wanting to get leads or feel inspired um, by the innovations that you made in the curriculum, uh, striking a fine balance between the needs of the assessment and and innovation. May I request Dr. Sunila to please start and share some of the innovations that you have done in the curriculum in your school, in your context.
Yes, definitely. So, when when we had this whole thing of the lockdown, and we had to definitely adapt to so many new methods, the first thing that was facing us all was how do we finish off with you know bringing about this innovation, and at the same time also uh, not letting the curriculum suffer. And even otherwise, even without going into this into the COVID situation, even other times when I remember when I was with Thakur International, and we started with the AR VR, the augmented reality and virtual reality. So, how do we bring about this lovely innovation, but at the same time, it should satisfy the needs of the curriculum? So, a very, very fine balance had to be, we had to follow that very carefully. That a right blend of it. We cannot completely replace all kinds of technology with simple basics also. Those things need to be done. And for that, a lot of back end work needs to go into see that you get, say, if you have a typical 40-minute class, that children should get a chance to experience the new methods hands on, as well as get enough time to be able to make a note of what they have learned and see how they can apply it. So, uh, here comes the role of the teachers, and obviously of also seeing that the curriculum that you're following, uh, the learning objectives are met. So I feel that there's an equal a sensitizing the parents and the children and the teachers, because it is, as you know, it's a three pronged approach where all have to be involved in the teaching learning process, and make them understand that just because you have a particular new technology doesn't mean everyone rushes in there and just keeps using that. Even at during COVID, this was the same situation when we went completely, using only portals and different kinds of online platform and this and that. So many things came up, but yes, certain amount of basic reading, writing needs to be done, because otherwise there's such a big gap in the learning. 6 months down the line, if you're only doing gamified learning, what happens to a child who is not able to probably write down anything because he has not been writing for a very long time? So a balance needs to be struck, and that is what I did even as I transitioned from Thakur to Orchids, and found that equal amount of time is given to blogs. You need to write a blog. You need to think your communication skills, your critical thinking skills, all that, but on an online platform definitely. So children were using both things, the new methods as well as the technology, as well as the simple things of writing and thinking. And obviously with internet, I mean, they have such different things that they can explore. So encouraging the children, giving them the direction is a very important thing. And that is just what we did, as all of us from the teaching background. That's what we have just been doing and promoting, so that teaching is the learning process is exciting, and at the same time it is balanced with the rigors, as you had rightly said, sir.
Thank you,
So
ma'am.
that's what.
That's really insightful and motivating. We must understand and strike the right balance uh, in whatever changes we make, and make sure that the change uh, is of a pace which can be absorbed by the system without feeling um, intimidated or suffocated. Is a point that is very well appreciated, and I'm really tempted to hear from others about the innovations that they have made in their schools. However, I'm also very aware of the time, and I would want to shift the gears to the leadership practices which foster innovation. And I would request you each to briefly share with our audience what are some of the leadership practices that you have found most effective and fostering of innovation in your context, and uh, how what has your journey been like as a professional? What is the kind of self reflexivity that you exercised in order to adopt practices that help you see more innovation happening in your context? And when I say leadership, I'm sure all of us understand that leadership is not only vested in the position holders, but is something that is spread as a practice across an institution. So I would request you to please shed some light on the aspect of leadership and innovation and how they connect. Yeah, Dr. Kavisha,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
could possibly take
Yeah.
the initiative here.
Yeah, sure. So, leadership and innovation are quite, I feel they're interrelated. A good leader has to be innovative. And you very well said that innovation or leadership does not only come to the person who's heading an institute, it is a diversified thing. Have to make not only leaders tomorrow, but good listeners also tomorrow. We have to have good listeners to become good leaders tomorrow, right? So, I here feel that as it is, we've talked a lot about, like you said, that why should we innovate and stuff like that. I feel that if, because of the inclusive education these days, it is very important to have innovation. Every child is unique in its own way. And maybe a child does not want to be a leader tomorrow. He just wants to have a peaceful life tomorrow and he does not want to lead. So we need to give him that space as well. So during lockdown, what our school did was, when it comes to the tiny tots, there was a lot of play, lot of play in the sense that if they are learning A, B, C, or E, E. So I'm just giving you an example of a game. So parents used to stick some flashcards on the wall, and the child, if the teacher calls out, say the alphabet B, so the child has to hit with the ball. So he's learning also. Okay, this is B, and he's hitting the ball. So that's making him active. That is an innovation done by the teacher. The teacher decides his game. So, as you said, the leadership and innovation came together. Likewise, Chauhan ma'am said a very good point that writing is very important. Children are forgetting it. I asked one of our students today that why aren't you writing? You used to write so well when you were young, or when we were young, we used to write so much. They said, ma'am, we are a generation of 40 character limit, Twitter limit of 40 characters. So learning writing has actually, as ma'am said, has on the paper and pen is a little difficult task on them because they're mostly blogging or vlogging. So now we came there, gave them the task that instead of writing on a paper and pen, that certainly they will do all the literature answers, language answers. But if they want to write creatively, let's make a blog space for the school children. Right from grade 1 to grade 12. Let them write more than 40 words, more than 400 words. Give them a space to write. Again, an innovation and leadership coming together. Some were very good, some were just average. That's absolutely okay, right? So this is how, say, if we innovate new methods and leaders come together and accept it. During lockdown tenure, we used to have a weekend fun where we used to call upon different people. We had IAS officers, we had magicians, storytellers, different people. That was the only solace kind of a thing which children found when they were hooked up to their screens all the time. But thankfully, things are better. It will get better. But yes, to keep our children engaged, we need innovative leaders so that the children tomorrow become leaders or whatever they want to be. Whatever they want to be.
Dr. Dr. Shalini, if you could share what are some of the things that you practice as somebody in a leadership position to foster innovation?
Yeah. Um, I personally feel, that, this is a very stressful time where, parents are in the classroom and, a lot of interaction happens directly, parents without thinking with the teachers. Sometimes they would abuse the teachers. So there's a lot of negativity which was happening in the school. So I started the practice of, pranayams and meditation. So this is something which we're doing it every Saturday for an hour, and I'm myself expert in it, so I ensure that everybody does it. Um, we basically, worked on each and every subject and co-curricular subjects as well. For example, we basically merged traditional and modern methods together. For example, a concept of skip counting. So we asked children to, they would have be having a Ludo because they were all hooked on computer games and the parents were, complaining. So we made use of things like, playing cards, Ludo, calendar. So, we asked them, okay, we'll do skip counting in a Ludo or write our own rules. Ladder could be used for going down and a snake can be used to move up, or we could start from 100, reverse counting. Similarly, we devised a lot of games in maths using these activities where I would actually sit with my teachers and we would think of innovative methods. And we also thought of breakout rooms where they would play Ludo with each other or interact. Even for languages also, we had books, we special reading books. And then I would say, why don't you ask them, if you have read one chapter, what could be the next chapter? Let them think and kind of come up with the content of the next chapter. Or if the end could be different, if they can think of a different end. Similarly, for we used to have assemblies where I encourage children writing their own rap songs or their own music, their presentations in sways or PowerPoint presentations. So a lot of brainstorming happened with the departments, and we actually changed a lot for them. and this really worked for us. This is only a small glimpse I've given. We have done too many activities and using household things.
Thank you, ma'am. I must express my appreciation of the depth of your engagement with your school system, and it's really heartening to see you so involved in in your school system. And Kriti, ma'am, your perspective on leadership and what leadership can do to foster innovation.
As said, I do believe, as I started earlier as well, uh, that leaders have to become thinkers, right? And leaders need to promote thinking as well. So in my school, I promoted a lot of group thinking, first of all, fine. And every department was made to have smart goals. Smart goals, I think we all know about smart goals. So I trained my every department to have smart goals, first of all, right? Because just talking and not implementing the things does not bring out the results, fine. So everyone can talk about a lot of things, but actually how to approach to have outcome based education is very important. So every department was made to develop smart goals for themselves with the help of ideation and group thinking. And then we had in pen and paper different parameters on the basis of which those smart goals will be then evaluated and analyzed at the end of a specific time period, right? Initially we started with the monthly, and then we started with quarterly analysis, right? Then half monthly analysis, and then yearly analysis, so that every department knows and understand that where are they standing and what they have to improve as per their own subject. Here I would also like to emphasize one particular aspect which I do it in my every talk which is related to education, and that is I emphasized a lot on lesson planning, because a proper lesson plan is to be followed when a teacher has to deliver something in the classroom, fine, that 40 minute is to be used very wisely if something is to be taken out of it. So the whole approach of drafting a lesson plan was changed. My every teacher's lesson plan goes through 5 stages of lesson planning, and they are required to mention it. Okay. And that 5 stages start from engaging the children, to exploring, to experimenting, to application, and to evaluation, right? So every lesson plan has to go through these 5 stages, and then every lesson plan has to mention that what outcome is expected out of the children, and what skills are promoted in the children in that particular lesson plan. So there, this is how we actually started, and this is how we slowly and slowly strengthened it in our school. And then slowly and slowly, there is so much of automation now in the school system itself, in the departments itself, that they have started experimenting themselves without even giving them a push. Okay. So this is how we built up a culture. Now we have started interdisciplinary approaches as well, that the group thinking to be done for interdisciplinary approach. Like for example, we all know that Hindi, English, or regional language grammars, they normally go at the same pace, right? If it is now being taught in English, right, it is now being taught in Hindi, and it is some other thing taught in the regional language, right? So how to integrate all these things so that it becomes easier for the children to grasp and to take in, absorb that particular thing, and to reflect it in this in a particular way. So this is how I emphasize a lot of group thinking, a lot of ideation, and a very strict approach for implementation of lesson planning, whatever has been done during group thinking inside the classrooms. That is my very strict approach, that whatever was planned, it should be done in the classrooms, right? So that is how I think I promoted innovations practically in my school. If I don't talk theoretically, it was practically done in my school.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm truly inspired to hear that you not only foster an ecosystem which is encouraging of innovation, but also um, precipitate it down to the classroom by then precipitating it into the groups, and also providing and monitoring the micromanagement tools which can help the innovation systematically precipitate as a practice, and that I think is a complete end-to-end cycle for innovation to uh, to be fostered and to happen, and then to be precipitated into the classroom. And I'm really very very interested in hearing from Dr. Shanila about her views on leadership and innovation. And I would request her to please share with us. Uh, Although I'm also very aware of the time, uh, but I would request Dr. Shanila to share with us her perspective on leadership and innovation.
Yes, so I strongly believe in identifying and developing others to become leaders. So identify the staff who can take up different leadership roles, guide them so that you can set up leaders in each area of their expertise. This in turn helps the whole system to work really well and helps us to innovate and actually have the time to think and innovate. Because sometimes if you're so busy, and or if you just want to take all the control and say that okay, I will only come up with this and I will only deliver this, it becomes a very a different kind of kind of a different kind of trip altogether. So rather look at those who are good at, say, making, who are more into the IT field, and help them to come up with better ideas on how to bring about the innovations that are related to IT. But then there are those who are completely with the project based learning, scientific inquiry. Let some of them develop in those roles. Some are good trainers, some are good with curriculum. Divide the entire whole lot of your entire staff resources, human resources that are there, including this is not just about the teaching staff, it's about the whole school, whether it's the administration, whether it's any aspect. And even a small thing like even the the people who may welcome you at the entrance, if they are the first thing is when a person enters the school, right? So they also need to be trained accordingly, and there are some who are just so good at that. So each aspect when it's looked into, and each one, there are leaders there, they guide the team, then we have actually been able to succeed in our goal of developing new leaders and transforming everyone around us. And that goes hand in hand with innovation. They come up, so many heads are together now thinking about something of their interest, of their expertise. So they would come up with ideas that, okay, ma'am, this will work here, this will work there. Look at it, vet it, and then after that, we can implement and try it. So this is what I have always experienced in the different roles that have been, given to me, and that I've also. I mean, when I look back and I see those people and so confidently, maybe it's a shy librarian, maybe it is another a lab assistant, and taking up that role in that powerful way, and then innovating that, we could do it this way, and you look at it and say, oh my goodness, it was there all the time, this was the answer and I couldn't come up with it, but he would be the right person. So that's what I believe would actually transform the whole system, the whole school. And children also, when they see that there is this kind of yes, my opinion matters, people are there listening to me, they also feel free to come up with ideas.
Thank you, ma'am. That's been personally very motivating for me to hear. Uh, and I'm glad you really brought this up, because um, uh, when you say you, as a leader, you identify people who have the potential to innovate, I think that's That's something which was the missing piece in this discussion, uh, because identification and extending support to someone with potential is as much a tool to foster innovation as much as making a provision for the ecosystem. I think the handholding aspect is has been uh, very well articulated by you. The other aspect which you have really helped me get an insight from is the aspect of innovation, irrespective of the formal role and position, which can be limiting and inhibiting unless individualized attention is given to the potential of the agency of the person in the role to innovate and take initiatives. It's really insightful and also very motivating to hear that. And may I now as bring in the aspect of policy as an instrument, because school education is a structured institution, and structured institutions are driven by policy. And policy, whereas can serve to innovate, but can also serve to align and streamline uh, the the efforts and the whole process of any activity that is seeks to address. And education is our education policy aspires to do that as much as it aspires to uh, probably foster innovation. So we've had the new education policy come in, and I would request you to share with the audience what are some of the bright sparks that you see in the new education policy, which have either removed the obstacles for innovation or have made provisions to further encourage innovation, encourage and foster innovation. And I would request you each to take 2 minutes to please share your perspective, because as I said, I'm very aware of the time, and I'm also wanting to leave out some time for audience questions to the panel.
Shall I start, sir?
Please.
All right. Sir, as per new education policy, right? I think I'm a big fan of new education policy because of its holistic approach, first of all, and then they have helped schools like us because when the society got divided into two different parts, traditional schools and modern schools. Right, those schools who were following traditional methods, modern schools, those who were following modern methods, and then it became a choice with the people which school to follow. Right now, I think because of the holistic approach of this new education policy, every school has to follow the approach towards competency based education. So therefore, now first of all, this division of society or division of educational world in traditional schools and in modern schools, that division has gone, yeah, that is division is diminishing because everyone has to do this. Second thing, it has helped people like us who were so keen to do something different in their schools, because now it has become easier for us to request the parents or to collaborate with the parents for some modern methods which the parents were not ready to accept it voluntarily, right? Because parents, they wanted an easy approach, but they wanted the schools to do everything, but they themselves wanted to have an easy approach. So it has helped schools like us or the teachers like us to have a hand holding with the parent as well, to have a support from the parents, because now it is legalized. Right now, this innovative approaches in competency based education is legalized, right? So therefore, we have gained a lot of support and gained a lot of help from the parents too. Then the next aspect is liberal education, fine, which national education policy has brought in, because now we are able to advise our children to have different combinations of subjects, because now the children will be able to explore the opportunities to have different combinations at the university levels and colleges level as well. So imagine a child, having painting along with the non-medical subjects, having psychology with medical subjects, right, having music, dance, with the medical subjects and non-medical subjects. Now, because all these combination of the subjects, this child will be able to take up in the universities level also, and at the colleges level also, and the professional colleges too. So it has given a lot of freedom to the children and to the parents as well to pick up those subjects. Earlier, these children used to be snubbed off by the school also and by the parents also, right, not to have so many varied combination of the subject, because of because of they should not face any difficulty in getting admissions, right. But now, because of this new education policy and promotion of liberal education, I think at least I have been able to advise my children a lot to pick up any subject which they like and which they are passionate about. And I have seen a lot of changes in my +1 and +2 classes going for this. So this is what
Thank you, ma'am.
like.
I'm really I'm really able to sense your enthusiasm with the new education policy, and it is infectious. And I would like you to continue, but for the time limitation of time set by the organizers. And I would request Dr. Shalini to share with us an aspect of the new education policy which she finds particularly inspiring or enabling.
For me, all the points which Ms. Sharma has covered. In addition to it, something which I really liked was, sharing of resources. Like, there's a dearth of, specialized teachers for languages, and if we can share those resources, now we have an online platform. This will help our students a lot. In case of somebody wants to study a diverse, a kind of, regional language, so there are other schools, and we can share the resources. I'll only share one point. Then many of points are there, but let others also get a chance.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Kavisha, your
Yeah,
point of
the policy talks about meeting the international standards by introducing project-based assessments and vocational subject. When it comes to innovations, NAP is like a boon which has come because it focuses on individual learning. It give learners the ownership, and I feel importantly, inquiry-based learning is very important, which is the call for an hour, and of course, it's a part of experiential learning. Basically, the NEP has weaved the digital thread across the very fabric of education system, which it demanded. But things are always easier said than done. Let's see how it shapes up to be tomorrow.
thank you, ma'am. Dr. Shunila, your point of view on an aspect of the education policy that enthuses you, or something which is you think is still left uh, to desire.
Of course, all that my fellow panelists have said, I mean, I am really excited about all of the points. And I just want to add one thing, and that is the internships, which has come in with the NEP 2020. And that has actually, you know, got me very, very happy because this is something, work experience which children need. And they really need to know what they are going to be doing. So this blend with the vocational and the internships, along with the complete digitalization and intensive use of technology, I mean that whole package has me just looking at things ahead and waiting for it all to get implemented. That's what
Thank
I
you, ma'am.
wanted to say.
I'm really feeling very enthused personally, seeing such thoughtful and innovative and enthusiastic educators on this panel. And what is personally very inspiring for me is that it is happening across the nation. Um, it is not happening only in silos, but across the nation. And each one of you has shared very rich insights into the into education policy, into leadership, into innovation, and it has been very personally very satisfying for me to have heard your point of view and to have learned something and got newer insights into leadership and innovation as a practice. On that note, I would request the organizers to please facilitate any questions from the audience, which could come in the chat, or which could come in by whichever ways moderated by one of the organizers. And I'm sure the panelists here will be only too glad to settle some of the curiosities that our audience may have. May have. Okay, I've been suggested to please wrap the session accordingly. Sure. Mm, mm, but I still feel motivated enough to give another few seconds uh, for any curiosity that uh, the audience may want the panelists to address. Okay, so this has been one of the more inspiring uh, discussions that I have ever moderated. And as I said, I'm really inspired by the fact that um, this kind of innovation is not happening in silos, but the practice of fostering innovation and fostering collaboration is something which is happening across the nation. And I find each one of you very enthusiastic and very inspired to foster innovation. And I find it personally motivating to um, hear your views and to see you put in practice uh, some of the some of the best practices that am aware of uh, in the area of school education. I thank each one of you for having spared your valuable time and for having brought in insightful perspectives to this table, to this discussion. And I wish you all the best in your initiatives. And uh, uh, I sincerely wish that each one of you emerges as a champion of innovation in the area that of your choice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.